thank you all for joining. Welcome to the latest webinar from Deal Room, this one on the Global Tech Ecosystem Index, which we released just a couple of weeks ago in Berlin. And yeah, really nice opportunity for us to dive into some of the findings, explain what we were doing, why we did this, and also help you understand a bit better how you can use this data for your ecosystems. I'm Orla Brown.
And I'm Peter.
And yeah, let's get straight into it. I will say, actually, we'd love to get your questions during this. I'm going to be keeping an eye on what comes in. So we'll try and answer as many as we can as we go through as well.
Yeah. Any questions, stuff you want to see? This is the briefing, so we will have some slides. We will also show the dashboard. So any questions, let's make it a bit interactive and fun. So please put it in the chat. Yeah.
Right, let's go. Yeah, so actually maybe a bit about us first. For those of you who don't know us, Deal Room is a global data platform that maps the world's tech ecosystems. So we're the source of record on startups, innovation, high growth companies, venture capital, and tech ecosystems globally. Yeah, and this, and we already work with a lot of the people on the call. So actually, I had a quick look. We've got representatives from more than 30 countries and at least 4 intergovernmental organizations who have joined the webinar today. So that's quite nice. And yeah, maybe a bit more about our partners too.
Yeah, so we have now more than, I think, 120 governments, cities that we work with to map out ecosystems and to help them, like what to measure, but also how to grow, where to focus on. And we will keep doing this and growing this network as well. So if you're not in part of this network yet, reach out and then we can help out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe a bit about setting the scene for this index. So this is, an index and benchmarking of tech ecosystems globally. And this is why, so we want to show a little bit why these tech ecosystems matter. Globally, the tech VC-backed ecosystem is worth over $39 trillion. And maybe most importantly, that's a 13x growth inside a decade. So this is not just a sort of fringe part of economies. It's not just sort of a few fun startups, people in hoodies and playing on with ping pong tables, but actually core part of major economies and massive drivers of growth of both value creation and of jobs as well.
Yep.
And yeah, to like exemplify that even more, if we look at the most valuable companies in the world, 7 of the top 11, Tesla keeps popping in and out of the top 10, but today 11 are VC-backed companies. So yeah, it shows how big these companies can become, but also these are not only big in their own right, but they're also massive drivers of R&D spending and further innovation. They're also become investors in the next generation of startups and things like that. So super important for all economies to be focusing on these kind of companies. So yeah, maybe let's dive into the index itself. So yeah, we launched it 21st of May, was it? End of May in Berlin. And yeah, we've hopefully lots of you have seen it already. So yeah, in the course of the webinar, we're going to go through the index a bit. We'll show a few examples and like really unpack the data on some of those examples, and also how you can explore the data on the platform yourselves, most importantly. And then also a bit of what's coming next, because there's got a few fun features coming. But yeah, in this global index, so we benchmarked 288 cities across 69 countries, and maybe a bit on the criteria of how we chose to include certain cities. So we looked at any city that had produced at least one unicorn, so $1 billion plus company, or anywhere that had raised at least 100 million in venture capital over at least 50 rounds over the last 5 years. So we wanted to make sure that we were capturing places where there is enough going on, but those are some of the parameters.
Yeah.
And then we also wanted to have a look at these ecosystems through a few different lenses. So we wanted to understand on the biggest scale, like which are the biggest tech ecosystems that we should be caring about, and looking at as these biggest, most mature ecosystems, but also we want to be able to compare cities like for like. So we also wanted to do a per capita lens, see where places that might be smaller in general, but are actually really punching above their weight. And then also ones that are growing fast. So this growth lens of rising stars, emerging ecosystems.
So good overview from the large one, but also the density and then the upcoming emerging ecosystems. What important, what we say here, like staying competitive and keep playing, like ecosystems are never done. There's no finish line. So you can be ahead or you can have momentum as an ecosystem, but you can also lose it. And there are struggles per region, per city, and that can be international expansion or labor law, for example, an exit landscape, but also the age of your ecosystem. Of course, some regions are, let's say, a little bit older in building ecosystems, and other ones are newer, but you can still learn from other ecosystems. So we always look at from this lens. Not, hey, you're number one and now there's the finish line and we're done, but more like, hey, those are cities and regions that have a lot of momentum. That's how we look at it. And we look overall competitive as well. That's really important to look at this index in this way.
Yeah, so a little bit on the methodology as well. So I'll be giving you the means to fully explore all of this data yourselves as well. But these are some of the metrics that the metrics that we included in the index. So it covers things like startup capital, but also later stages of investment. So breakout capital, scale up capital, ecosystem momentum, whether an ecosystem is continuing to grow in recent years versus just whether they're like large in absolute terms. We looked at value creation. We also looked at the talent and innovation pipeline, so university talent and linkages and patents. And we had some economic upside, so the affordability part that comes into particularly the rising stars lens. We've then got different weightings for those depending on the three lenses, which you can see here. And then to also just mention that in each of these, we've done a percentile rank of the 288 cities. And that really means that it surfaces cities that are most complete. So not just ones that are maybe really, really strong in one area that would give them, put them off the chart, but it means that you need to kind of score quite well in lots of these areas in order to have a high ranking.
Yeah, and all completely transparent as well, so everybody can see how we do the ranking and the scoring, which is, I think, also really important for this kind of index.
Yeah, and we do talk about the ranking, but we also, it's kind of the framing to introduce the data that's underneath, the fact that we make this data transparent, that you can play with it yourself. That's what we want people to be most looking at. But having said that, maybe let's have a look at some of them as well.
So let's first look at the global champions, the top 20 familiar names, of course, Bay Area and New York City, but you also see, for example, Paris this year above London in Europe as leading hub, a lot of momentum there. And other places like Seoul and Tel Aviv in the top 10. Super interesting to see with this one.
Yeah, and then on the
next one.
Yeah, have a look at the next one. So on the density leaders, so this is again the per capita lens. We see, interestingly, the Bay Area still at the top because it is just so strong, but some different names in here as well. So some smaller places like Cambridge and Munich, but also
Austin.
Research. Yeah, Austin, Research Triangle in North Carolina. So a lot of these are very academic focused places, and that kind of innovation and deep tech linkage coming through in a lot of strength for some of these places, even though they are kind of smaller overall.
Yeah. And then the rising stars here, Lagos really on the top, emerging ecosystem, but also Istanbul and Pune and other places. Yeah, so here you see a little bit more Asia and Africa places, but also South America, for example.
Yeah, this is the most exciting list, I think.
Yeah. So keep a good look on those ecosystems, because those are, if they can learn from the good and the bad mistakes from older ecosystems, they can really grow a lot. Yeah.
Ones to watch.
Yeah, one to watch. Cool.
Yeah, now into the dashboard.
Yes.
So, yeah, we wanted to dive into some of the examples that are in some of these top 20s, and show that, like, actually all of this data is not just in a few slides, it's all available for you to play around with on Dealroom. So this is on app.dealroom.co/locations. You can play around with it along with us if you like, or afterwards. So in here, we have got all of the data that is in the Global Champions Index, in the Density Leaders Index, and in the Rising Stars, as well as a bunch of other things as well, actually, which we'll show in a little bit.
Yep.
But you also have the ability to see all of the metrics that have gone into the particular positioning, what those underlying numbers are. You can also do some comparisons, which we're going to do in a sec, and you can do lots of filtering. So you can say, I just want to look at metro areas, I just want to look at the US, and then filter all that information below. So yeah, we wanted one of the major aims of this piece of work was that we wanted to make it super open so that everyone can understand exactly where their strengths lie, so they can lean into them, where there's maybe have some gaps in their ecosystem that they could address.
And also compare to other cities, because it's sometimes cities are like, look how much we grow, or the economy is growing, versus what, right? So I think being a bit more data driven as policymakers and government organizations that are responsible for growing economies, but also jobs, it's also good to see in a larger perspective, like, hey, how are you comparing to other peers in other cities, right? And that's now really visual and transparent to do.
Yes. So let's have a look at some examples. What do we have next?
Yeah.
Exactly. So one of the key things that some people might have seen when we launched the report was a lot of attention over the fact that Paris ranked above London in the Global Champions Index. So yeah, got a bit of coverage.
A lot.
Yeah, the president was obviously quite pleased about that. The French Macron, that is. Even the Brits, to be fair, they were like, "Oh, we do like to actually compete and collaborate with our partners across the channel." But we also had, some people saying, "Oh, if you talk to the data enough, it'll tell you what you want to hear." Or people asking why this came about. So we think we should explore exactly that and show you data. Yep. Exactly. So if we go back to the dashboard, so I'm going to show you in real time. So what we can do as an example of wanting to compare two cities, so we can search for Paris, select it. We can also search for London, and then we can hit compare. And if we go to the Global Champions section, then we can see here all of the metrics, all of the numbers, and how they compare to each other. So you can see that in quite a few of them, London is actually further ahead. So in absolute terms, London is still a bigger ecosystem.
100%. Yeah.
More investment raised by ecosystem value, by number of unicorns. And so you can see that here in the levels of scale up capital, breakout capital, and startup capital, and ecosystem value. Where we see Paris starting to overtake on some of these bars is in some of the other areas. So that includes alumni founders. So that means people who have studied at one of the universities from that city and then gone on to found a startup that raised investment at these different levels of investment. Paris has actually got way more than London, which is kind of interesting. And again, also, if we look on the patent side, Paris universities or Paris companies have real strength in the number of patents and sort of innovation pipeline that they've been developing. When we look at the unicorns again here, then again, London is further ahead, but crucially on this part, growth. So this is looking at total funding growth and comparing the last 2 years to, so 2023 to 4 to 19 and 20. And on this metric, investment actually fell in London by 7% between these 2 periods, whereas Paris investment grew by 24%.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to include in this Global Champions benchmarking was not just looking backwards, looking at which cities have achieved great outcomes so far already,
Yep.
but also at make it future looking. So
Yep.
where there is momentum. So although London is still ahead, actually Paris is closing the gap basically. Yep. So it is catching up.
And that's also maybe important as an ecosystem. And like, of course, maybe you have some unicorns or a certain industry, but we talk about innovation, right? So you need to move, you need to stay competitive. So now with AI, you can be great in one sector, but if a new sector pops up, are you still playing in the old economy, right? So this is what really important to show that momentum and this funding growth, for example, are really important.
Yeah.
Look at how you're performing. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's lots of other ways to visualize this in here as well, which can be helpful. So we can hit this radar chart here, and it will show those same metrics, but it's a little bit easier to spot where the strengths are. So again, for Paris, the total funding growth being the outlier, even while London's kind of capital and unicorns is further ahead. You can also flick across these different sections at the top, and it will retain the comparison that you're doing. So you can have a look at venture capital and these other sections, but we'll probably get to that on some of the other examples as well. Yeah, so next, this is actually another view that we could do in the app as well, which is where you can see, that it used to be that London had a really big gap over Paris, and actually now it's a lot smaller than it used to be. And on to the next example we wanted to.
This is also something that we see some with our customers. So what happens here and what you see in this slide was an article from the Wall Street Journal about Austin is resigned as a tech hub and in decline. And it was a bit of a negative article, but it was in the Wall Street Journal. But the data was a bit strange. And what the team in Austin could do right away was showing the media, but also making sure that the article was shared online, showing the data and say like, hey, there's a whole different story behind Austin, and we're one of the fastest growing hubs, and we're not in decline. So they could tackle this narrative that in media, but they could also respond really quickly. So follow the data, and then instead of like headlines that are sometimes opinion driven and are not really data driven. So it was really good from the Austin team to really use the platform in their favor. And we have some more to show there, like for example, with some and here as well, where you see that Austin is like the 5th global champion globally and really outperforming, doing really well with other US cities as well. And then here, for example, you see Austin grows in the US, largest tech hub, and very strong momentum. And this is what we see back in the data as well. So this is something that we also help our cities and regions in, like, hey, how do you use this data to be in control of the narrative that is maybe created by the media.
Yeah, and maybe we can show how we found this, because this is also in the app, which is fun. By the way, I'm just keeping an eye on the questions that are coming in. So we've had a hello from Madrid. So hello. And we've also had a question about Morocco, which we'll try and get to in a sec.
Yeah, keep asking questions.
Yes.
The good ones we will pick out. Yeah.
But yeah, if we want to basically replicate
what
we've done here. So if I go back to the app, I'm just going to reset everything. And what we were looking at there was the funding growth for US cities.
Yep.
So first of all, I'm going to filter by US. I'm going to just focus down onto metro areas.
Yep.
And then I also wanted to look at, so it was a metric in the global, I'll just actually highlight Austin so it's a bit easier to spot them. The funding growth we've got over here, which I'm going to sort by, but also I kind of just want to zoom in on some of the major ecosystems.
So what Ola is doing here is like we look at ecosystems that have a combined enterprise value from at least 100 billion. So you can remove the smaller ones that are, of course, sometimes screwing the data.
Equally, you might want to exclude, if you're from a smaller ecosystem, you might want to exclude all the big ones, so then just compare against some of your peers more easily. So yeah, we've got these kind of min and max ecosystem value filters you can put in here. So when I put that in, so if we're looking at all ecosystems in the US that are worth at least 100 billion, and we've sorted it by funding growth, and so Austin comes out in second. So this is like basically a super quick way that you can have a look between all of the different metrics where your ecosystem ranks really nicely, which you can use in some messaging. But then again, you can have a look through to for where you need to work on some of the challenges as well, potentially. But yeah, all of it available again in the platform.
And it's so great example how to be more data driven. Yeah, maybe also one that we want to show, like we are headquartered from Deal Room based in Amsterdam. So
you're
maybe,
passionate about this one.
Of course, I'm passionate about tech ecosystem in general, Europe, but also globally. But yeah, let's also show some other ones as well. So Amsterdam, for example, there are some challenges in the region in Amsterdam, but maybe in the Netherlands in general, and we can also see that back in the data as well. So one of them is like the scale-up capital that is lacking in the Netherlands versus other peers and other hubs, and I think that's something we can show a little bit. So let's go reset here. So I will take metropoles, and then we'll do Europe, for example. Overview, click back. And now I click, like, for example, Amsterdam, Paris, Stockholm, Cambridge, and for example, München. And let's maybe first, I can compare them. Let's go first. Yeah, let's do first. If we have those cities, here we also did smaller ones. But if you look at now enterprise value, we already discussed that. But if you look now at enterprise value growth from 2017 to 2024, you see that Amsterdam here is even, for example, on like really low with the 2.8 growth, enterprise value growth, compared to, for example, other cities that are here on the top, with, for example, Stockholm with the 5.4, and München as well, and Paris as well. Larger ecosystems growing really a lot with enterprise value growth.
Yeah, because Amsterdam has a couple of really big success stories from a few years ago, which is why it's got that big bar in the first column. So companies like Adyen and Booking. But then, and if you look at more recently, the growth then maybe lagging behind a bit.
Exactly. So this is one thing that is a bit worried and probably should be addressed, and we can help ecosystems with that. Another one that if we look at autonomy here, and autonomy, if you click here on the cities, you can see what is the percentage of scale from investments coming from domestic investors. And this is pretty important as well. So if you look here, we do and here Europe. Here, I think Amsterdam is doing okay. Let's increase this one to 50. Yeah. So here you have like the top cities in Europe, percentage of domestic for startup capital. But if you then go to breakout, we're in the same range roughly. But if you then go to scale up capital, so those are 100 million rounds, we're completely on the top, on the bottom. And here you see that we compare to our peers in Europe that are, for example, Copenhagen or London or München are 17, 20%, and average is 25%. From 100 million rounds is coming from domestic investors. And we don't have that in the Netherlands, for example, or in the region of Amsterdam. And this is pretty important because those are companies that are pretty de-risked already and raising a 100 million round. And you want to convince pension funds and other government funds, for example, to invest in this asset class, to also participate in this value creation that is happening. right? So this is a thing that we see in the data really quickly back, like, hey, why is this happening? And this is probably, a bit of something that also needs to be addressed in Amsterdam.
Cool. Maybe I'm just going to address a couple of questions in the chat so far. So we had a couple of questions about why the places that are in here are included and why not other places. So let me just read them out. So we said, hello from South Yorkshire. Hello. Could there be a view to compare counties and regions within a country, such as comparing the north and south of the UK, or even South Yorkshire to Lancashire, South Yorkshire being formed of 4 places, only Sheffield for us is included in the comparison. So yeah, we do hope to expand the places that are in here.
Yep.
To the next question, which is also related, echoing the comment above, maybe I missed at the beginning, but what's the rationale for picking certain cities and not others in the dashboard? So the criteria for inclusion for the cities was anywhere that had produced at least 1 unicorn, or anywhere that had raised at least 100 million over 50 rounds in the last 5 years. So because you mentioned there's some cities that are smaller that are included, but not others. It could be that it's quite small, but they've produced a unicorn. So that's why they're in there.
Yep.
So that's the reasoning, but we do that was the kind of starting point.
Yep.
We do want to increase the
over time we will
build it out so that people can compare other places. Lorenzo's usefully asking answering a few of the questions in the chat as well. We also had a question about London and Paris again. So we covered it a little bit. We can go back though, because maybe it was a bit quick.
Can I show this one?
Yeah.
Like one other thing that if you compare, so now I took, not Austin. Yeah, I took Amsterdam, Stockholm, München, Paris, and Cambridge, for example, to compare. And if you go to there's some radars here and a bar chart as well and a heat map. But for example, the line chart is pretty interesting to see. So now you see like cities in Europe, how they're performing. And here you see, for example, the enterprise value, which is a good metrics. And here, for example, you see also the overview. If you look at Amsterdam, a little bit dark pink, the top line here on the top, we did really well. Like the growth till 2021, but from 2021 till almost now, 4 years, it's almost like decline and slower growth. And then here you see really good in Stockholm, which is doing amazing in Sweden, the orange line, how much growth they produced in the last 2-3 years. And the same, like for example, with the green line with Cambridge, for example, as well, and really impressive growth from Paris, where Paris came from. So they were like far behind the Netherlands with their ecosystem, maybe in 2020, and then the last 4 years. So this shows, I think, really that momentum is really important, and we need to look at not only size, but like growth and all the elements and overall of your ecosystem. You can not only focus on one element, for example, that will not help to grow further. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we've got another question, which is Austin is listed as global champion, but I'm also seeing it as number 63 under Rising Stars. Can you weigh on why they are on both? So all of the cities that are included in here are ranked in each lens, but then the criteria is different under each lens. So the Rising Stars ranking is really aimed to surface the ones that some of the cities that might be smaller in absolute terms, but are growing faster. And we've also got that kind of cost of living and GDP per capita element in here as well. And the reason for that is that if you raise a 5 million round in Lagos, that is going to go a lot further than it's going to go in Austin, for example, because you're going to be paying people a very different salary. And so we wanted to have this other nuanced lens because it's useful for your, like, ecosystems are just at different stages of development effectively. And there are different places in their journey. And so we wanted to be as useful as possible here. So this ranking might not be as relevant for Austin, basically, but I mean, that's kind of because they're already on that global champions in number 4. But yeah, every city is in all 3 rankings, basically. We've also got a few other questions. Yeah, as I said, Lorenzo is usefully answering some of them as we go along.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
For me. Somebody asked as well how investors or corporates can use this data. And maybe also related to that, somebody asked about enterprise value. So maybe I'll explain what the enterprise value is and where that data comes from, because that's kind of related to then also how investors can use some of this data. So what we mean by what we include as enterprise value here is basically the sum of all of the value of each of the individual companies in that ecosystem that fall within the scope of the tech ecosystem. And where those valuations come from is a combination of if it's a startup that has gone public, then we've got a public valuation that we track because that's publicly available. If it's a company that's been acquired, then we use then we would take the price that they are acquired at. But then for all of the companies that are still private, we will take publicly available data where possible. So if a company raises a funding round, then often it will be announced at what valuation that company has raised that round. If we know that they've raised a round, but the valuation isn't disclosed, then we make an estimate of the company valuation based on the size of that round and the stage, based on analysis of tens of thousands of rounds, basically, that we've done. And at an aggregate level, that kind of all evens out. So it might be that one company ends up being a bit overvalued versus reality, and some a little bit under, but it means that we're able to add up all of these numbers together. So it's not necessarily, but yeah, so related to the investor point then, is that behind all of these numbers is all of the company data. So this is the locations part of Deal Room. But if we were to go into the companies section here, then you can see all of the companies that apply. And if to take the Austin example, we can see all of the companies in here for Austin on each of their pages. Then we can see lots of information about the rounds that they've raised, the areas that they operate in, and you can endlessly filter down into different areas of interest. So you could choose particular geographies, particular sectors that you want to focus on. So you can use this for prospecting. There's also information here that can help you with pricing of investment deals, to benchmarking, competitor analysis. So yeah, lots of the Deal Room clients are also investors and corporates, along with ecosystem partners, to answer hopefully those questions together. Nice. Somebody saying they love the nuanced lenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where are we now? This location.
Yeah. And so maybe we wanted to have a little look at the rising stars as well, actually, because maybe that's the last area that we haven't covered so much. So yeah, if we go back to the app, so in this rising stars lens, yeah, let's have maybe a little quick compare of the top ecosystems. So Lagos, Istanbul, Pune, who all came out on top. And if we compare them, and maybe let's have a look at the radar one as well, because that's always fun. We can see where their strengths are. So Istanbul doing really well on the enterprise value growth, as well as on the new unicorns. And again, the sort of cost factor coming in to really benefit Lagos as well. So it's useful because, again, if we didn't have the per capita and the cost of living aspect in here, then Lagos might be a bit more buried. But actually, there's a lot of very exciting stuff going on there. And again, to the investor point of how you use this data, worth having a look at what's going on in some of these ecosystems that you might not otherwise be on your radar.
Yep.
Let's have a look at the line chart as well. So you can see, yeah, lots of growth in some of these ecosystems, which is much higher gradient than you would see if you were to look at some of the biggest ecosystems.
And this is the fun stuff with the platform now as well. It's like you can compare like we have 288 cities. So you can just compare all kind of places, and then you can maybe see like who are in the same age bracket of like ecosystems that start growing. So that's really fun. Like for example, those three now, and then let's see in the upcoming years if they can keep up with each other.
We had just had another question from Anna at DCIT, Department for Science, Innovation, Technology in the UK, which was about checking the global champions. I was wondering why New Palo Alto is not showing on the ranking, but Bay Area is. So let's go back to that. And maybe to just explain a little bit what New Palo Alto is.
For people.
So New Palo Alto is basically a sort of construction of a supercluster, a tech supercluster in Europe.
Yep.
And it's where if you were to make it's anywhere you can get within a 5-hour train ride of London, effectively. The idea of this was to try and if we, like, people talk about the Bay Area and Silicon Valley as being, you know, absolutely leading ecosystem in the world, but it's actually a massive area, and it can take hours to get from one end of the valley to the other.
Yeah.
But in the US, these places all seem very close together because it's a big place. Whereas in Europe, we maybe think of ourselves as being quite far away from each other. Whereas here in Amsterdam is only 4 hours on the train on the Eurostar from London. So New Palo Alto is this ring. What we didn't include them in the global champion in the rankings here because lots of people don't know that first little explanation. Maybe we actually did have them in the first cut, and then we were kind of deciding whether to include them. But we do have the data for New Palo Alto in the other sections. So if we look at the overview here,
and this includes London, Paris, Belgium, Leuven, Brussels,
so
Amsterdam.
Some of the major places included would be so London, Paris, Amsterdam, but you've got Oxford, Cambridge, Manchester, Bristol, Leeds, Sheffield, Edinburgh, Glasgow, all of these places, like Eindhoven. So these places that are actually like really powerful and successful tech ecosystems in their own right, but actually they're pretty close together, and you could look at we can sometimes decide to look at them together. And actually in many senses, this is the second biggest ecosystem in the world after the Bay Area.
And why this matters is, I think, for two things. Like, one is maybe investors can maybe one train ride away and they invest, but also talent-wise, right? Like if you live in Amsterdam and you think like, I can get a job in Paris, for example, you would maybe consider it as well, right? So also talent is moving in that region a little bit, maybe more. So that's why with the lens, and I think next week we will also have a separate podcast about the New Palo Alto and about scaling capital. So we will have a highlight about that one.
Yes. A couple of questions that also Lorenzo has kind of answered, but about why we chose the comparison periods of 2019-20 and 23-24. And that's because 2021 and 2 was a very volatile time in tech for a lot of macro reasons and interest rate reasons and things like that. And so we wanted to normalize this massive
good question.
Kind of up and down that happened everywhere, and look at what the long-term trends really look like. So that's why we chose those periods. And a couple of people who are fans of the New Palo Alto idea, is Saul Klein from Local Globe, who kind of first had this thought experiment, and then we've been helping to understand what that looks like in data terms as well.
Definitely.
We've actually got a question which maybe bridges on to the next section, which is, so firstly, greetings from Budapest, thank you. Can the rankings be adjusted to specific technologies, e.g. best ecosystem for AI, biotech, etc.?
Good question, and right away, a nice bridge of, I think we're here. Coming soon, sectors. So we call them sectors or industries. And this is coming soon. So this will something that we will implement in the platform pretty soon, and it's pretty exciting. So we have already made a list of the top hubs and cities in AI and deep tech. but we will add 10 other ones as well coming soon. So then you can also look at which are the best cities in fintech or life science or semiconductors and continue. And this is pretty important, I think, for regions and for locations, because every city has some background, maybe with like big companies that have been successful 10 years ago, and you have a spin out effect, and you have like knowledge in those regions. So some cities could maybe better focus on certain sectors where they are performing and have like a talent pool as well. So we will showcase that as well.
Yes, so it was much demanded, but it's very cool. So we wanted to show what's coming, but also some sneak peeks of the type of things that you can see. So this is looking at the top hubs in AI. So the AI and deep tech lenses are actually in the initial launch report, so you can have a look at that as well.
So here we only look at all the companies who are involved in AI, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we make the ranking again.
An AI filter over the top of the same rankings. So yeah, on the global champion side, interesting to see how some of the names change, because places like Cambridge move up a bit, but also Beijing, Shanghai, and then if we look on the density leader side as well, Tallinn doing really nicely when you look at AI in the density lens. But yeah, we wanted to also show what some findings from some of the new sectors that we're going to be adding, and to also say, this will be on the platform. So it will be added to the dashboard that you'll be able to play around with it yourself. But so far, we've just been playing with the data and checking everything works before that happens. So yeah, really cool to see. So if we have a look at the fintech side, we've got in the middle, in the blue, is like the ranking in this sector, and then on the right is how that ranking compares to their overall ranking in the general one. So we can see like London, Singapore, Hong Kong, big like financial centers shoot up the rankings when you just look at it for fintech. So Hong Kong 19 positions higher, and in the top 10 when you're just looking at in a fintech lens. Actually, Paris and London switched places there.
And Miami, I was super surprised to see that as well.
Yeah,
probably
lots
crypto.
Of crypto, lots of crypto in Miami, exactly. 16 positions higher when you're just looking at fintech. And then, on the life science, nice to see any ranking that doesn't have the Bay Area at the top, actually. So Boston, lots of biotech life science in Boston, which makes them come out on top. But then also like Copenhagen, so home to Novo Nordisk, like 22 positions, and Philadelphia, both 22 positions higher in life science compared to their overall ranking.
And this is pretty interesting, because sometimes we also talk about, it's not only that those companies that are growing, that they stay long and really powerful, but sometimes those companies also will be sold and they generate a lot of like the founder factory, right? So like Skype was successful, sold, and then there's a lot of companies in Estonia created. And this is something that you see with, like, if you zoom in subsectors, you can see this effect a lot as well, right? So if and that can even be stronger for like really dominating some of those subsectors. And so it's not only like, oh, we have unicorns and they stay unicorns and they become like leaders in their industry. It could also be like, hey, they're unicorn, but they produce a lot of other companies that come out of it. For example, ASML came out, or Philips, for example, right? And now ASML is like 3 times bigger than Philips.
And defense and dual use, so super hot topic at the moment. Lots of American cities in there, but Munich up in really third. Well. So Helsing, I mentioned that raised again yesterday, but there's actually a lot of other stuff going on there as well. It's not just kind of one outlier company that's moving them up. And then, we've picked a few interesting ones from some of the other sectors as well to highlight. So Beijing ranking 3rd for semiconductors, which is 15 positions higher than its other ranking. Amsterdam for fintech, cyber in Tel Aviv, and then deep tech number 4 for Cambridge. Food for Bengaluru is a really strong sector. Basel for life science, and robotics, Pittsburgh in number 3.
And it's super exciting to see of those new robotics, for example, new sector maybe, but that's a bit like, you can be great in fintech, but maybe the new future will be robotics, AI, and life science. Yeah, then you want to participate in those sectors in industry, and that's how you stay competitive, right? So it's good to have that lens for a sector.
Yeah, if you want to know, if I want to start investing in robotics, where should I be looking? And then get a quick top 10 that might be different than a normal one. I think it's cool as well because some of these you might kind of know a little bit, like you might think, oh yeah, I know that Amsterdam's good for fintech, whatever, but it's cool when the data actually backs it up as well. It's kind of like validation, but also that sometimes there are some surprises, and then you think, oh really, I didn't know about them for that sector, and you look into it and then you start realizing, oh, there is something going on there, and so it's nice for discovery as well. And
I think also really good for those cities to use this data for other stakeholders, like think about universities and think about like polarization and like spin-outs and those kind of initiatives. If you can show like, hey, we are already in the top 3 and we are dominating this subsector, that can help a lot, I think.
Yeah. Somebody asked about metro area, like, so what's included in each of the cities. So we use the metro area of all of these places. In some places we have just shortened the name. So the question was about Madrid. It's Community of Madrid that is included in all the data, and like it means that for Boston, then we've got, Cambridge is included in Cambridge, Massachusetts included in Boston. We're not only looking at technically the city. We're looking at what is the relevant ecosystem that's included. Maybe you were back to the Amsterdam example.
So maybe we just mentioned this short, but here's an overview just to give an example. Like if you look at Amsterdam as a city, great in fintech and food and architect as well, and climate tech, for example, and energy. But you also see that some other industries a little bit lower, AI, for example. As a leading city in Europe, probably that should be higher, right? If you want to participate in that next industry that is coming. But the other ones, like for example, deep tech, makes them maybe a little bit more sense with less technical universities in Amsterdam, and maybe also space, for example, right? So this is something that we will show with other cities as well later on.
We've got a question, which is how many companies in a city need to have in a specific sector in order to be considered to increase or decrease points in the ranking. So any city that's in the ranking, you'll be able to do it sort of by sector once this comes out. The top 10s, I mean, they've already got a fair critical mass of what we're actually showing here, but you'll soon be able to see everything anyway.
Good.
Yeah, well, we've kind of been doing the questions as we went along, actually.
Yeah.
But I think I've mostly been capturing most of them. But we do have a little bit more time if people want to get them questions in.
Yeah, or maybe if we want to show other elements from the dashboard, let us know. We still have a little bit of time. I will just then mention, so type the questions in and then a couple of other things. If you want to book a session with us, with one of the analysts or Ola or Lorenzo or other smart people in deal room, go to the website and request and call with our analyst, and you can invite your stakeholders as well. We see that we help more cities, that we can educate about macro lens, about economies and why this is important for an economic security, but also good and strong society to have a tech ecosystem. So we are happy to explain that to other stakeholders. So maybe people in this webinar know about this, but maybe you need to convince other stakeholders. So reach out to us. We do that a lot, and we can go through those slides, for example, and highlight. And especially with this dashboard, we can onboard more people to understand. So small call to action. If people are interested, just go to the link. Maybe someone can put the link in the chat, and you can follow the form. We have 2 other content pieces that you can watch to learn more. So the first video that we did on the 21st of May to explain the index with Felix, and we have another live dashboard demo as well on YouTube that you can find on the website as well. And maybe for other people who are interested, we're doing now roughly every 2 weeks we have a podcast. So we have one about European tech and changing world order, a little bit more from a macro point of view about productivity and about why is this important for your economy? but also future of energy, and the one from Palo Alto is coming up. New Palo Alto is coming up.
Yeah, we have had a few more questions, which is nice. So we've got one which is about our revenue model.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to explain
Go ahead.
How we make money?
Oh, how we make so what? How do we? So deal room, yeah. So we do a couple of things. One is we have the deal room platform where people can find startups. VCs are using that, for example, and companies.
So this is logged in currently. If you're
more than 3 million.
If you're not
startups.
logged in, then you can see some of this data, but equally you can buy a license so that you can access everything on there.
Exactly.
You can also buy access to the data via API, so that you can plug it into your own systems, or if you wanted to combine it with other data sets or put it into your CRM, things like that.
Yeah, and next to that, we also do reports, deep dive or longevity or AI. So sometimes we do industry reports as well with partners, and they're created content, or we can show it maybe quickly. And then the third one is also we build ecosystem pages for our countries and customers to promote their ecosystem as well. So we really map out the ecosystem and showcase what's happening. So this is, for example, all those pages.
So we had South Yorkshire join. So here's an example of their platform. So it's it means that they're able to see all of the startups and companies that they've got in their region, see the stats about it, and make some of this data open access to their community as well. And so they can use it for measuring, for marketing, and for also informing policymaking and decision making around how to support startups in their region.
100%. And also all the supporting organizations. So think about accelerator programs and incubator programs and all those kind of things we map out as well. Yeah.
Yeah. We've also got, there was a question about Morocco, so we can maybe have a look at the Moroccan data on the platform as well. But as I said, you can look at all of this online on your own. In fact, why don't we have a look at Africa? Oh, whoops. Just so we can put it into some context as well. So yeah, here we've got all the data about Morocco. You can have a look at it across some of these different sectors here. And again, all of the underlying data will be on Deal Room if you want to explore it as well. I'm just having a look at any last questions. Does the report contain recommendations on measures that are most replicable for emerging regions or aiming to climb the rankings? The report doesn't include that, but it's definitely something we can chat to you about if you want to follow that. That link.
That requires some zooming. Yeah. Exactly.
And nice. People very happy to have been convened and learn about some of this stuff.
So and it's completely open and transparent also on the page, so you can just play around, reach out. Exactly. And then I think maybe the last slide we have, if you want to meet us in person, those are like 3 or 4 larger conferences where we will be. So Tech Barbecue in Copenhagen, end of August, Resilience Conference in London about defense, GITEX.
They even put a video out about how
to pronounce it. GITEX. In October, we're going to do an ecosystem event there again. So if you want to join, let us know. 13 and 15 October, and then we will also be in Slush, focus a little bit more on deep tech probably as a topic on Slush, always on main stage. So if you go there, say hi or reach out, and we can meet in person.
Yeah, and the Berlin event was the first example of where we were really trying to bring together lots of our ecosystem partners in one place so that they could also learn
from
from each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And got lots of nice feedback from that. So I think it's definitely something we're going to try and do again.
Yeah, probably next year we do it bigger, and then we can also include which cities are really ranking with steps and all those kind of things. So
yes, actually, Aoife also says we're also going to be at Climb in South Yorkshire. I'm going to be there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you can come along to that in Leeds.
Some more. Perfect. I think nice on time. Thank you very much for watching. We put it online. You will get the link and the slides as well. So, but enjoy with the dashboard to play around. And yeah, if you need help or want to partner with us, reach out.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.